Okay, hi everybody. Thanks for joining our webinar on how to land that killer job with a top-notch event planning firm. We're pleased to bring some fabulous event planners from around the world to be presenters with us today. We have Janet Elkins. She's our blondie on the left. She's with EventWorks in California. We have Jocelyn Flanagan with E=MC² events out of Canada. And we have Richard Folks from the Paradise Experiment out of the UK.
Hi.
So we've got about 38 participants today, and I thought what we would do is just start off by asking some questions that some of you might find to be really interesting if you want to land that great job with an event planning company. So let's start off. We'll start off with Janet, and then we'll continue down. What would you say would be one of the key characteristics that you'd like to see in a new hire when you're looking to hire a new person for your company?
Thanks, Jill, and happy to be part of this webinar with everybody. And of course, there's different jobs in many different production companies, and those jobs require different skills. But two overall skills that I think would be universal for no matter what job one might have at a production company, and that would be enthusiasm for the job. Nothing is more rewarding than somebody who has enthusiasm for their work, as well as the other skill is perseverance. We all have a lot of there's always live events and there's always peaks and valleys, but somebody who really knows how to persevere would be probably a really important skill that I would look for in somebody.
Jocelyn, do you have anything to add?
Oh, sure, absolutely. Thanks again, Jill. And Janet, I completely agree. Enthusiasm is one of the key things for sure. But also, we need to make sure that the candidates have a full understanding of what it is that we do. We sometimes feel that our industry is glamorized quite a bit, and some folks want to get into the industry, but not understanding that we are the ones that are actually doing the work, not the ones putting on the glamorous outfits and attending the fabulous events that we're putting on. So it's the ones that have enthusiasm, but really also have enthusiasm for rolling up their sleeves, getting on their knees, getting the gaff tape out, and having 10 minutes to get ready before the doors open, and really understanding that it's a lot of hard work. It's not just a lot of fun.
Richard, do you have anything to add?
Well, I think...
Oh, you have to unmute your mic.
I have unmuted my mic. Can you hear me?
Perfect.
Hello? Oh, good, okay. I think that it's been summed up quite well. Things have changed in that since I was starting in this industry, in that you used to be able to get a job just because you showed the passion and you showed the commitment, and to be able to demonstrate that you don't mind hard work, which is the points I think that Janet and Jocelyn have brought up. I think now there is almost a requirement for proof that you are more than a passion, that you have a commitment in working in the industry. So having qualifications is now almost a must. It's not necessarily a complete must, but it's almost a must now. Whereas I think when we were younger, there wasn't event management courses, training, universities delivering it. So I think there's another side of it, which is a proof that you've made the investment in your time, doing work experience, that in addition to having a passion and being prepared to hard work, that is really important now.
Okay, besides the characteristics, are there any special skills that you look for, whether it be business skills or understanding spreadsheets and be able to write proposals? Any skills that you feel are essential for a new candidate?
Should I take that, Jill?
Go ahead. You can start with you, Janet.
Okay, sounds great. Well, again, as I mentioned previously, it almost depends upon what job you're looking for. For example, at our company, we have people who dedicate themselves to sales and production, people who do research and confirmations, people who are skilled in design, people who are creative, and so there's different skill sets that really make up the team here. And I would tend to think that's probably true for many production companies. So I think that a potential candidate almost has to decide what is his specialty. Is his specialty that he wants to go out in the industry and meet different people and make presentations, get involved with being sort of the front of the house, or is his skill sets really, which is totally a different skill set for those people who are really experts in operations. I always kid everybody and say my barometer to know if somebody's really good in operations is how clean their office is. Because a really good operations person always knows where every single thing is, knows how to find it, knows how to keep it all organized, where maybe other people in jobs might be much more scattered and enthusiastic towards and have skill sets in other areas. Someone who's really a designer, I mean, their skill set, and they're looking into, they really need to keep up abreast of what's new and different in the industry, in the design world. So everyone's skill set is a little bit different, and I think it's almost somebody looking within themselves and seeing which good job in that area and contemplate which is their best really area that they should really focus on.
Jocelyn, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, again, quite similar. We have multiple needs in our company from the communication side. So again, really strong communication is really needed for everybody. That marketing side is important in some areas. We've got a conference division, so we've got people that love spreadsheets and color-coded spreadsheets even better, and some wave their hands around a lot on our creative side. So there's not really one uniform skill that we're looking for, but certainly what we found in a lot of our great hires, they come from not only the education side, but the service industry, because everyone in our business is there to serve. And when we're getting, folks from hotels or from restaurants or that sort of service side of things, it's really helpful in terms of understanding how it is that we work with our clients and everyone out there. But within that service side, there are definitely those different skill sets that are required. Some things can be taught and some things are innate. So some people will know that they like spreadsheets, and others will know they like the more design-focused part of the job. So really, there's no wrong answer. It's just putting the right person on the right seat.
Richard, any add-ons for you?
I mean, I think to be honest, it's a quite a difficult question because, as has been eloquently put, it all depends on the role. Now, however, there are some skills that I think come across in every role, and particularly if it's a starter, someone who's coming in at a starter level rather than someone who's coming in a little higher up the chain. And we talked earlier about a passion, but I think there needs to be a proof that people are prepared to do things that maybe do sit outside their comfort zone, because often someone who's really happy doing spreadsheets actually isn't that good at them, and someone who thought they were creative actually might find as they develop they're actually really good at organizing. So I think at the starter level you've got to say, well, I'm really comfortable and I have skills in this area, but be prepared to work in another area and just give it their best shot, because sometimes that's where people find their passion, and where suddenly it's not just the passion they have, it's where they provide the best value to the business. And I think that comes across in both the preparation of the interview for meeting with people, and also in your what do you call them, resumes you call them, don't you? We call them curriculum vitae here. So I think it is a difficult question to answer, but Sorry to make you laugh, Janet. I think generally you're at a starter level. You are looking for a wide range of commitment potential. I think I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to add something that Jocelyn brought up, and I always think about the Ritz-Carlton chain and how they always have everybody within their company say, "It's my pleasure." And basically, no matter what skill set we have, what kind of company we have, what we specialty in, it's totally a service business. And as hard as it sometimes is, it always has to be done with that credo that it's my pleasure. So so no matter what, if you're in the restaurant in the food industry, if you're in the floral industry, if you're in the production business, we're always servicing clients, and it always has to be done with a good spirit, because that's a recipe for disaster. If you come in with like a little bit of a chip on your shoulder, or you have, it's always about the client, and it's always about making sure that they're happy. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Jocelyn.
No, that's okay. I was going to speak again on what Richard had said as well, in that a commitment to the industry, a commitment to our company is key. We've had staff, or we've had candidates that we've accepted that came in and said, "I'm not exactly sure where I fit. Here's what I know I can do now, but I know I want to be part of this company." And we're in the process right now of moving one really key individual from one role to a different role, because one, she's proven her commitment, and two, we got her in sort of as a junior level because we knew she had the skills, the passion, and the potential commitment, and we're moving her into a role that fits her better and also will fit us better. So as an employer, it's important we have the flexibility to understand there's that shift, and once somebody gets in the door, they may think, as Richard said, they love design, but what they really love is stage production. So it is an interesting shift we just need to be prepared for, and everybody needs to be flexible in that process.
Awesome. We have another one of our presenters that just popped in, David Merrill. Hi, David. David's from AOO Events up in California, and we're happy to have him. It's a little early for him right now, but we're happy to have him join us as well. So we talked a little bit about skills and characteristics that new hires might have to be good candidates for companies. Now let's talk about mistakes. Like, what is the biggest mistake that a new hire or someone applying for a job might make? Does anybody want to jump in, and then we'll give David a chance to warm up?
Yeah, I'll jump in here, and then lead it down the road. And I know this is a little bit of a cliche, but for all of us who are on this panel, we're all business owners, and have been business owners, and have worked really hard in the industry, and have just given it our all in order to maintain this this longevity in the business. And so with that commitment, we've worked really long hours. So when someone comes in and goes, it's really important to me to still have my quality of life, and I don't like to work, I want to still be able to have my life. That's actually true, and we don't want to take that away from somebody, but coming in a job interview and saying that that's an important factor doesn't win over hearts, in my estimation. And I'll leave that to the rest of the panel to see if they agree or disagree with that.
Richard, do you
have any thoughts? His microphone is off, I think. Maybe Jocelyn can either.
No.
Oh, there you are.
My microphone's on. I just switched it off so I don't interrupt you at all.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. I would agree. I think an entry-level job, and I think, Jill, you touched on it, is once you have started work is actually as important as when you're going through that interview. What your role is, wherever you sit in whatever skill set, is to make people who are more senior than you have an easier life, not for you to have an easier life. And I think if you have that approach from the start, which then leads a how can I help mentality, you will always be successful. Now, it will take time sometimes, and you will often be at the bottom of the ladder doing things that maybe you don't want to do. But if you are there to make someone else's life easier, you will make progress. And I think the bit I'd add to that is when I say someone that's more senior, I wouldn't necessarily mean the owner of the company. What I mean is someone who's been doing the job a bit longer. And that could be as simple as they've been doing it 3 months longer. But if you have that attitude of you can make their life more easy, you can make their boss's life more easy, their boss's bosses, and just be helpful, you will suddenly get a break. And I think that attitude in your interview is equally as important as in your first 3-4 months. Because remember, both people are learning from, you're learning from them, they're learning from you.
And one of the key things for me as in an interview and as a new employee is asking questions is not a bad thing. The worst thing that somebody can do is pretend they know everything, and just out of fear that they have to. And in our industry, we're constantly learning. So what I've had to be training new employees on is that it's better to ask more questions than to pretend that they know something that they in fact do not know. So humility is key in what we do and in the role that a new employee would have. So again, it's just really important to be themselves as they were in the interview, as it is for the first several months trying to get their feet wet in the job.
Awesome. David, any tips from you on mistakes that new hires or folks coming into your business might make?
Definitely make sure you download the proper programs and are online on time.
We'll forgive you.
Oh my God. I apologize. I didn't even know I had a Google account. I had to figure out a password and download 2 programs, so I apologize. And quite frankly, I did not hear the question, so I'm going to participate in the next one.
Okay.
I apologize.
Okay, so maybe what I'll throw out is all of us, I would say all of us have been in the business a long time. As Richard said, or Janet, we're business owners. We've started our businesses from scratch many years ago. How is the business different now than it was when we first started our first job or first client in the business?
That one I could answer. If it's me first, yeah, I started in '89. There was really no education and at all to learn really the industry. So my education came from reading magazines and just doing. In fact, even in the late '80s, early '90s, there wasn't a lot of cooperation between event producers within the industry, so no one would talk to each other to even give tips. ISIS was in its infancy, and so there wasn't a lot of chat going back and forth. So now you have all of this information and all these mentors that you can learn from, and there's so many different forums to pull from to get this information, including an entire curriculum that didn't exist 15 years ago. So there's an advantage here. I think the danger is that education is just a portion of it. You really need to do the work to really get the entire picture. Book smart's one thing, street smart's a whole nother thing.
Thus, we have the opportunity for people maybe to volunteer, to get some hands-on training. If anybody wants to talk about any other differences between then and now, or how people can prepare themselves.
I'll bring up something.
I'll jump in here. So
Go ahead, Jocelyn. Go ahead, please.
Okay. One of the big differences that we found over the past, we've had our company for 13 years, is the clients are far more educated now than they were in the past. So, which is something that we've enjoyed educating our clients, and at the same point, it's a bit challenging because now our job is a little bit harder. we have to be one step ahead, if not 2 steps ahead of the clients, because we have shown them exactly what is required and what the level and the standards are. When we first started in the industry, we could move mountains, or it would look as though we're moving mountains because the client didn't know any better. And now our clients, the industry has become a professionalized industry, where in the past it was a bit trivial or appeared to be trivial to the end user, and now it's 100%. It's a profession, and they're completely aware of what is required, what we need to do, what our possibilities are, which is exciting for us because that makes us push the boundaries and again, always be one step ahead. But it is really a shift, and sometimes, a lot in cases where we are, our clients are also event professionals. So again, it's great, but we just need to keep on the ball, and that's why all this education and mentorship internationally is so important, to make sure that we are ahead.
Janet, do you want to throw another tip in?
Yes, I would like to. I think this echoes some of the other conversations that we've previously had, but oftentimes when a young person comes to me and asks how to get into the industry, I do agree that institutes such as Jill's Special Event Institute gives you the basis and teaches you so much of the groundwork of the event industry. But then when it comes to getting a job, a recommendation for me would be get a job in no matter what industry, what discipline that's available to you. A good place to learn the business can be getting a job with a rental company. You can learn the industry, a lot about what it takes to produce an event by learning about tables and setting them up and tents, and it gives you a background of so many different things. And once you get into that industry, even if you don't want to stay in the rental industry, it'll be a stepping ground to go into other disciplines that may be more of interest to you. And or if there is a certain company or a certain industry that you're really passionate about, get in the door no matter what that job is. And even if it isn't the job that you want, because once they see that you have that perseverance and that enthusiasm and you have some experience that you can bring to the table, it's so easy then to make a change internally than bringing somebody else in externally. And I think as I look at some of the people here at EventWorks, so many people started off in one position, and because they were here already, and then there was a need, they jumped into like a different and perhaps what they might perceive as a better position. So I have to leave right now, but I would just like to leave you with, first of all, thank you, Jill, for including me on this, and just my words would be, my lasting words would be really do it. Take advantage of whatever education is accessible to you, and then do whatever it takes to get a job in whatever discipline, and that'll give you something on your resume, and that'll give you an opportunity to meet lots of different people, and then it's all up to you to make it all happen. And you can have 30 years here too. Doing this.
Thank you, Janet.
So, any rate, it was a pleasure. Thank you, panel members, and I'll look forward to staying in touch.
Awesome. Janet, thank you so much. Those were definitely great words of wisdom. Richard, do you have anything to add about what has changed and what folks might do to respond to that?
Well, I think it's been fairly well covered that there is an educational change now in terms of a requirement to have some experience, to have an educational backup and to have experience that you can say, this is the work I've done, whether it's working in a bar or working in a rental company or working in a hotel. So I think we've talked about that. I think we've covered most of the main changes. There is one I would add, though, is I think there is a requirement now, and I think it can be very beneficial if you have a more international perspective. I think we're no longer working in isolated countries where the work we do is only happening in one country. And whether that's a big country or a small country, we all learn from each other, and that's particularly come through social networks and through the use of the internet. So being aware of what's going on around the world and being able to have travelled maybe is actually quite important. And the actual benefit in your CV of saying, I've seen different parts of the world, or I've seen different parts of the country if you haven't seen the world, to say you've seen different cultures and how they behave. Because our role in event management, event design, event planning is actually to fulfill marketing messages that need to be taken in different ways by different kinds of people. So to have sort of an understanding of what's going on in the world, I think can be very, very important. And I think that's a big change over the last 15 years or so.
That's excellent. That is so true. What I find kind of interesting in the program is that we do have students from all over the world, and it's always fun for me to see how someone approaches an event very differently in, say, Africa than they do in Canada or they do in China. And it's really valuable to see how those differences are, and how you, even as someone from the U.S., just doing events in the U.S., can learn from that. So I think that is an excellent perspective. Before we move to Q&A, I'll just flip from David to Jocelyn, and then finally to Richard. If there's any final words of wisdom that you want to give before we go to Q&A.
I could start, and I apologize if I'm repeating something that's said before. It's kind of expanding on what you said before, ways to get into the industry. The last two people that I've hired in my company have both come and interned with me. And I don't think that we can underestimate the power of an internship program, because while you may not be making much money, they got a valuable education as to the inner workings behind the scenes. But what I got was a really good glimpse at their work ethic and their value. And so if you ever get the opportunity to go and intern for any companies, and believe me, everyone's interested in interns, it's very valuable, because but I would say research the people you're going to and treat it as though this is a potential higher opportunity, because it is a good way to get into a company and for them to see what you're capable of. Excellent.
Jocelyn, any final tips from you?
Sure. We didn't really speak about resumes and the importance of resumes and whatnot, but just from a very basic level, make sure that when when you're writing a resume, that you're not just cutting and pasting from the letter you sent to a competitor to get a job with them. We've received resumes where they're addressing, they might be addressing me in the title, but then in the body of the email I've gotten mixed companies that they're addressing. So one, just make sure that you're triple checking your cover letters, and also grammar. Grammar is highly important. It goes back to the communication skills, and really understand who it is that you are applying to work for. So again, just speaking to David, when doing an internship is fantastic, but just doing the research. So when you're in an interview, the interview will become more of a two-way interview. And it's important that the candidates understand that they also get to make the choice whether they want to work, whether we're the right company for them is really valuable. And the more questions that we get asked by a candidate, the more interested I am in that candidate.
Excellent.
Yeah, I actually find that impressive if someone asks me questions, because it means that they actually did their due diligence on us. So that's a really good point.
Richard, any final comments from you?
I have two examples of where someone who I employed about a month after, I didn't even know I had a job, they came in to interview me because they said that they were doing an analysis of the industry so they could decide what the best part of the industry it was for them to go to. And this lady emailed me and saying she was going to meet with about 5 or 6 companies, all of which were good companies, and she just wanted to meet to get my view on where the industry was going, because she was trying to find a place for her in the industry. She didn't actually say she was looking for a job. So I met with her, and I was so impressed by the way she was putting this study together that she was doing for herself, that about a month later I phoned her and gave her a job. So I think there's a point of finding a way to find time with people, and that can be going to those networking events where you'd rather go out with your friends, go out to see them, start to meet people, and have the courage of your convictions just to go and say hello to someone. Because most people are friendly, and if it happens that 6 months later you end up in a meeting room with that person for an interview, and you can say, I met you at a event, an MPI event, an ISIS event, and we had a 2-minute chat. You might not remember, but I do, because you had a big impact on me, and it's helped me why I'm interviewing today. That can be hugely strong in an interview. So that would be my only, whether it's a word of wisdom, it's a word.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Well, we're going to move to Q&A for about 10 minutes. We're going to let this run to 12:45, so we've got about 10 or 15 more minutes. So if you would like to, attendees, we have about 30 attendees right now. In the right side, you'll see a chat box. You can go ahead and type in information, any questions that you might have. And in the meantime, I just want to thank our panelists so much for being a part of this. These are some of the top planners and planning companies in the world, and I'm really grateful that they've agreed to chat with us today. And I also just wanted to say that one of the things they brought up was education, and we have a term coming up at the beginning of March, and for those that are participating in the webinar today, we're offering $50 off for the full program plan. So if you click on the link that you'll see in the pop-up, that'll take you to a special enrollment page, and if you do that this week, you can take advantage of a discount off of our full program plan. So we will plan on having these webinars fairly regularly, so take a look at our Facebook page and keep in touch with that. You'll see us post. We'll have more speakers hoping to give you advice on career and event planning. So let's move over to the chat box and see if we have some folks that have asked questions. Let's see. In our chats, thank you, Janet, excellent. There are very few stupid questions. Yes, stupid mistakes can be avoided by asking questions. Thanks, Janet. Tyler Griffith, better to ask stupid questions than any questions. Any other questions that attendees might have that you'd like the specific speakers to answer? I'm looking in my box here, and I don't see anything. Anybody have a question?
Oh, there's Tyler has a question.
I have a question. Tyler, type it right in the box, and we'll have one of our speakers answer that for you.
How exciting.
We didn't talk too much about resumes, but one of the things I was going to ask is there any standout mistakes that a candidate could make during an interview? Is there any do's and don'ts?
Boy. For me, the first thing that comes to mind with that is don't pretend to know more than you do. And I think that was already said. Is the one thing that we don't like is a know-it-all. We want someone that's moldable. We want someone that's going to, even if you have been in the business for a while, you have to understand you're coming into a new company with a new structure and a different way of doing things. So if you come in with a know-it-all attitude, then you're not going to be open to the ways that it's done within the organization you're now interviewing with.
That's excellent. One thing that I, even though I'm a moderator, not a panelist, I'll just throw a tip out. One thing that I like to see, and I have people that I interview for both internships as well as full placements, is that give me some ideas of what you can do to help me. The skills that you have, how you can put them to work in my business, rather than I'd like to work for you because I'll get experience and I'll learn more, and you know, I don't know anything about Excel, and I think if I work for you, I'll learn more. I'd rather hear them say, I really love social media, and I'd like to work for you so that I can showcase your company on social media platforms and bring more attention to it. So think of the skills that you have and how you can help your prospective employer make their business better. That's just a tip that I would have. So Tyler said, I've had the opportunity to work for a number of companies part-time, meaning I have little experience in a lot of different areas of event planning. How should I present that in my resume? So if you've had lots of different jobs and just gathered little pieces of information along the way, any ideas on how to post that on your resume?
Well, my comment on that would definitely be don't be apologetic for having short-term opportunities, because it looks like you've been getting a lot of different experience, and as we said, in whether it's an internship or whether it's coming on volunteering or just doing on-site work, where the idea is to get a well-rounded breadth of experience, so that it's nice when a candidate has a really good understanding of the breadth of what it is that we do. So I think really just outlining the roles that you had played in those various positions, whether it be a list or whether it be, you know, exactly what it was, I think that's an asset to show that maybe you've done some stage management, some design, some social media, some this, some that. You know, we don't need to be experts at all. It's nice for us to have a candidate that has a really well-rounded knowledge of our industry.
That's excellent. That's excellent, Jocelyn. So Karen is asking...
Can I just add to that? Yeah.
Okay, sure.
It was just, I think, if you've done a number of different jobs over a period of time, I think it's good to represent them exactly as Jocelyn stated, but I think you do need to have if you like, something that gives it some credibility in terms of, it's not that you've had a number of jobs and been terrible at all of them and they've left them and then tried something else. I think what you need to do is say that your objective was to gain a more wide knowledge as a sort of a newcomer, and you've done that, and the most effective way of doing that is to take a number of small contracts as and when they become available. So I think if you set the context as to why you've done that, it can actually be quite powerful, because it shows you've got some ambition to be doing something more permanent, but you want a good base knowledge. So as long as you caveat or put some context before you list all of the things, I think you can make that quite a strong CV, resume.
That's excellent. Thank you, Richard. So Karen has asked a question, where do we see the largest growth happening? Corporate event planning, association, social planning versus another? Anybody have an idea where they see growth in the future for event planning?
Well, my answer would be all three. You know, we're coming out of a recession, and anybody who's been in the business, all three of us have gone from a lot of employees down to little employees, and then had to go back up again. So there is growth in all three sessions. I think that the social market is a very interesting market right now, because as you know, gay marriages tend to be approved in more and more states, you're seeing a huge influx in the wedding industry of that market. So there's a brand new basically buyer on the market, in the social market, that doesn't even know how to buy yet. So that's a really interesting area for everyone who's really paying attention to the social market. Corporate is going back up too. I think they're beyond the stigma of you know, being perceived as overspending. The spending is way more responsible nowadays. There has to be a return on the investment. And so therefore, because corporations are, number one, seeing the benefits of the face-to-face meetings again, they're starting to pick back up. So you're seeing growth really across the board. Even associations are going to pick up and do more because the economy is getting better. There's more needs on the association. They're going to start including more things. So the next 5 years, unless we have some catastrophic incident, are going to be epic for our industry again. All three areas, social, associations, and corporate.
Excellent. We had a couple questions about whether or not Jocelyn's company was a part of MPI. We have some ISIS members that are on the line. And Jocelyn, are you part of MPI and ISIS?
Yes, we have a number of memberships. We've got three offices across the country, and we're ISIS members in all of those and MPI members in 2 of those. So yes, in Calgary we've got a few of our staff are members in both of the organizations, and we're quite involved in both MPI and ISIS. Absolutely.
Someone also asked about volunteer positions that might be beneficial, and how do you find out about volunteer opportunities? Specifically, this person asked in the Vancouver area. Anybody, I've come to mind, being part of ISIS or MPI, you certainly get to go to meetings with lots of other professionals. Anybody have other ideas for getting volunteer positions?
Yeah, I would think just make sure that you're not shy in asking for them. So we've a number of our staff have come to us through volunteering, and or doing some on-site work. We get resumes all the time. We put them on a contractor list, and when we have projects, we do a reach out to all of those on the list to see if they're available for for on-site jobs here and there, and that's where they get a lot of experience. So there's no right or wrong answer. If you're volunteering for an event that happens to be nonprofit because they need volunteers, that's great. Just put yourself, as a volunteer, put yourself in a position that you want to gain the experience in. So that whether that be set up, or whether that be helping on the fundraising side, or whether that be stage management or registration, just do not be shy to ask for opportunities to anybody.
Thank you.
Could I add something
Absolutely.
to that, Jill? Which sort of picks up both things. The thing about associations, and it doesn't matter which one, whether it's MPI, ISIS, in the UK there's 27 associations in the industry, so you can make your choice. But there's generally grey areas of crossover between them into what area it is they do. ISIS have set it up very clearly as being for the creative event professional. MPI is for meeting planners. Now, of course, there's a grey area. But I think if you are going to do some volunteering, don't forget that you're in those associations, whichever one it is you do, don't just go to it and say, okay, where's my job now? I've paid my membership or whatever, now I want to see a job. It doesn't work that way. But what it is it's an opportunity for people that are in industry leaders in your area, go to these events, whether it's MPI, ISIS, or what have you, and if they see people that are contributing in that environment, that's when they start to see who's that's volunteered to do the registration desk, or someone that's helping out with the lighting because the lighting's been donated, but someone's helping out. Use your membership to increase your profile. Right now, if you're coming into the industry, it's all about your profile. Think of it as if you're trying to raise yourself on the television. Just get yourself out so people go, well, who's this person and what they've been doing? Create stories for yourself, because those stories, don't forget, you can also be using all the social networks to do. Last week can be in your social network. I saw a great event being put together by this company. Or use it, and then when you go for your interview, you've got that whole armory to say, well, I've done this, that, and the other. So, being a member of a professional association, I would say, is a really big thing, and then use it to raise your profile, not directly to get you a job or get you business. That comes in naturally, I feel.
That's great. Robert, one of our listeners, actually asked about how, after working 3 years in the restaurant business, how he can jump back into events. And I think, Richard, you really answered that nicely, just by being out there, tweeting about it, posting about it, putting yourself in situations where you can be an event enthusiast on the ground. I think that answers his question nicely. It's 12:45 now.
Robert has a very...
Oh, do you have a question, Richard?
No, I was just saying, in terms of what Robert's got, just in his very simple question, he's running a restaurant, so he understands all of the things we said were important, which is about customer service, and he also is manager, therefore he's got an idea of finances, bought-ins, costs of sales. Those are really strong things to have if you can then find an environment where you can prove you're very good at that. And also, if you're working in a restaurant, you also know it's really hard work. You have to be up early or work late, and you have difficult customers. Those are really good strengths that would make you, I'd have thought, would prepare you very well for someone in an interview. But you've got to say why. Going in saying, I'd just like to be in the event industry is not going to be a good thing. To go in and say, I've got all these skills now that make me perfect for the event industry, and that's why I've come to see you. So it's the same thing, but you just say it in a different way.
We're running a little bit late. Should we just answer one question that Lisa has about, on her resume, what's the best way to include examples of events you've produced on your resume? You know, we think of a resume as a printed document. Do we list them? Do you include a DVD with photos or a little storyboard? Anybody have any ideas about a creative take on showing specifics about produced events on a resume?
Well, the one thing that comes to mind for me right away is that the one thing I do see is someone putting pictures of an event they were a part of, but they never explain what part they were a part of. So they kind of represent that they did a larger part of an event than they did. So while you're showing pictures, it's important to say, here's what I did for this, because for me it's a little bit of a turnoff if you're going to represent that you did the whole thing where you didn't. And for someone who's not of experience to pretend that you have produced or something of large scale might be a little bit of question. I might question that a little bit.
If it's events that they've actually done, even if it's small fundraising events, community events, any other tips rather than list them on a resume?
Well, you know, pictures always work better than words.
I think you've got to put yourself... I'd just like to add that I think what you've got to do is try and put yourself in the mindset of the person that's reading it, not to do it as what you think you want to write about yourself. Mm-hmm. You need, so if you're going for a creative job, photos are great. If you're going for an operations job, photos are fantastic, but what people want to know is what you contributed to that event. If you're a designer, fantastic. But just think that the person that's reading it has got to read through 30 or 40 resumes first. Then they've got to narrow that down to 5 or 6. So they've got to get it quite quickly. When you're in that 5 or 6, you want something that, in the same way we talked about passion, excitement, commitment, it's all about the words, I'll be honest. And so there's no particular way to do it. You could do attachments, you could put a CD in or something if you wanted, but bearing in mind people that are employing you are often busy people, they might not look at it, so try and stand out.
And I would just on that.
Can I answer the question too? Oh.
Sorry, Richard. Just on that, if you are describing events that you have produced, do not embellish. So again, speak to the reader as if we're a 4-year-old, and that we need to capture the essence. It's similar to writing award submissions, that we can't over embellish the language, that it's very concise and exactly, as both David and Richard have said, the role that you played in the success of that event, and perhaps what part of that you were drawn most to. But make sure that it's succinct and you're not giving an over overblowing your involvement, and you're not just talking about the event, you're talking about your role.
Richard, did you have a closing, or David, a closing comment?
I just had one to the question that we missed for Jay Hannell about branding. Obviously, there's various ways you could take that question. About one's personal brand, which is how the question is, how do you look to build their own personal brand? The thing about a brand is you've just got to be true. You've got to always be true and always consistent. And I think you need to find the things in yourself that you can deliver on. So if your strength is to always be on time and to be precise, just make sure that's how you develop your brand. It doesn't mean you can't occasionally have a good time, and but your brand is everything. But just find something you can be true to, and that would be my advice on that.
Okay. We just had a couple of thank yous. Lisa posted, I think, can everyone see these in the block? I think so. Yeah. Lisa's making a nice recommendation for our Special Events Institute, and a thank you from Rochelle to everyone for our time. So at 12:52, so I also want to say thank you to my colleagues, and thanks to everybody. We had a great turnout of attendees at this webinar, and like I mentioned, we will be holding these regularly, so be a fan of ours on our Facebook page. If you want to be included in our mailing list, send an email over. We are Special Events Institute, and thank you again for taking time to meet with us today. Thanks, everybody.